It is 7 o'clock. I call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call attendance for us, please?
Sure. Councilmember Henry.
Aye, Glenn Henry, present.
Councilmember Mock.
Aye, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayre.
Aye, Lori Sayre.
Councilmember McKnight.
Aye, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Courtney Johnson, present. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. I just sent you a text. Could you send the meeting invite to the email address that I sent you? I'm on my phone now. For some reason, I was having some trouble getting logged in from my RSC.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm going to just read the beginning of the meeting stuff while you guys take care of that, and I'll check in, Christy, to make sure you're squared away when we're done here. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning into tonight's meeting. We value our residents and community members, and we want to make sure that anyone who wants to participate and provide input can do so. This meeting is available via the city's website by clicking on the video link under upcoming meetings or on the homepage at cityofcarver.com. Or you can join remotely via Zoom conferencing services and provide input. Information related to joining the Zoom conferencing services can be found on the city's website or attached to the agenda to this meeting. We ask that anyone wishing to address the council wait to be recognized by the mayor, be respectful, wait for your turn to speak, and don't speak over one another. Callers will still need to provide their name and addresses for the record. All right. Christy, are you squared away?
Not quite.
Okay.
It's coming from my Gmail account, Christy. That's all I had access to.
You can get started. Well,
Okay. All right. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Make motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Mr. Merritt, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry.
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Sayre.
Aye, Lori Sayre.
Councilmember Mock.
Aye, Christy Mock.
Councilmember McKnight.
Aye, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion carries. All right, we are up to community comment, and we have some folks who want to speak. So come on up. You need to introduce yourself and give your name and your address for the record. And then you can feel free to pull down the microphone so it's a little closer to your mouth, and just make sure that that green light is on. Is the green light on? All right, have at it. All right. Thank you, Riley. I appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts with us tonight. All right. Is there anyone else for the community comment portion? How's it going?
Courtney, my name is Dean Nelson, 5425 Highway 212 in Chaska. Highway out here. I am a resident of the Carver Lions, and I just have a quick question for the council. I talked to Brent today, and he told me it was the council meeting. I found out today that Steamboat Days is not happening this year.
That's correct.
And I've been talking to our Lions members at our last meeting or two
Okay,
So if you have any other questions, Brent can get a hold of me, Chris can get a hold of me, they have my numbers, and I can answer whatever your questions you have.
okay, Dean, if you just want to leave it there, I don't know that anybody else is going to come up, and I can just grab
I think
it.
I got plenty of copies.
Okay,
Just
and,
a quick little drawing as to how we'd like to set things up, how we would direct traffic around the hall and so forth with cones, where we're taking our orders, where we're delivering the orders, where we're gonna do the booking and so forth. It's pretty much all of it.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. All right, anyone else for the community comment portion? No? Okay. All right, so moving on to item 6.1, the street reconstruction plan. Mr. Merrick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to give a little bit of a lead off before we get started. It's a pretty significant issue, I would say. Probably one of the biggest that this council has dealt with related to the reconstruction or the improvement to Jonathan Carver Parkway. So we'll be doing this kind of I would say in 4 parts. One, I'll give kind of an introduction to what we'll be doing tonight. And then Dan Lanis, the city engineer, will be kind of going over what the project is in detail. And then Paul Steinman with Baker Tilly will be kind of going over a little bit more of an intricate detail of the financing. And then finally,
you will say is that when you talk there first?
And then finally, we'll have a public hearing where the public can provide input to the council on next steps, and then council can also provide some questions. So just kind of getting back to how we got started with this, the city council actually identified the improvement to Jonathan Carver Parkway with its 2015-2016 strategic plan. So that led to a corridor study that was a partnership with Carver County that was finished or started, in May of 17 and then completed early in 2019. So WSB was used as the project engineer for that corridor study. There was a series of open houses and meeting with stakeholders along the corridor to kind of just determine design elements or kind of conceptual design elements for that project. And so just want to go back a little bit now to why we're here tonight is the city has identified, or the city council has identified, using street reconstruction bonds to finance this project. And so we put together a street reconstruction plan, which simply has one project, the Jonathan Carver Parkway Improvement Project. The 3 pieces that are important for that is we needed to publish a public notice with the city's intention to issue the street reconstruction bonds. The council does have to hold a public hearing, which you're doing tonight, and then adopt that by a supermajority or 4/5 vote. And then upon adoption, residents have a 30-day period to petition for a reverse referendum. The petition needs to include 5% of, or be equal to 5% of the votes cast in the city's last general election. So with that, I'm gonna share my screen. Or Dan, do you have this up? Are you gonna be running this, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead and share the presentation.
Yeah.
I would have my presentation.
Okay, go ahead. I'll make you a host here and allow you to share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, you should be good to go, Dan.
Okay.
So I think, Dan, just before you do that, I am going to just open the public hearing. So with that, Dan, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, you should be looking at the cover slide of the presentation, noting JCP 11 project update.
Yep.
So, all right, so we're off and running. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a review here. This is going to be a full cover to cover on this, but it's going to be somewhat of a brief highlight of many of these points. But this is intended to be for any public viewers' understanding of the project. So we'll go do a few things that we've seen before, but it's just going to be a brief project review, staging update. There'll be some details that everyone hasn't seen before. So we have a few key points I'm going to try and highlight there, and then we'll run through the costs. So as you know, the project runs from Highway 212 down to 4th Street. The two-lane rural highway now is going to be effectively upgraded and expanded to a 4-lane divided urban. So it's going to be all the way through the center of the city of Carver here. I'm going to go through the details of each segment real briefly here. So this is what you have at the north end here, Monroe Drive, Ironwood Drive currently. It's going to be two-lane rural. It's going to be expanded to include signals at Monroe Drive and Ironwood. So currently you've just got the signal at Ironwood. Monroe is going to have a temporary here fairly shortly, but ultimately this is going to be a permanent expanded signal with the project here. So it's center medians, 4-lane divided urban, new underpass at this location, and some trail connections that currently do not exist. So moving from Ironwood to the south to 6th Street, their existing conditions will be transformed to 4-lane divided urban, again with center medians and some trail additions and connections roundabout at 6th Street, and White Pine Way will be reduced to right in, right out. South leg of the project at 6th Street, of course, is going to be expanded to a roundabout intersection, some enhancements at the fire station, and some trail enhancements through this portion of the corridor as well. 4th Street is going to get some geometric improvements for safety. 4 lanes is being run all the way through 4th Street. So that's ultimately the southern limit of the project. So that's the project in a 30,000 foot level. Where we stand on schedule, we're in. Well, I'm a little behind on this. This is actually a month off here, so we're in August right now. So we're closing in on the final stages of final design. Right-of-way acquisition is mid-process. What's ultimately up ahead is the plan approval process that's going to include MnDOT state aid review and approvals, and then the bidding phase of the is planned for November, December is the current schedule to get some contractor pricing for the project. Project start is anticipated for April, probably at the latest a May start to begin highway construction. They'd be largely substantially complete, is what we'd call it, by end of November. That'd be the highways open to traffic, all 4 lanes, trails would be functional and usable, but there would be some final work that would carry on into 22. Largely some landscape work and things of that nature, some finishes, restoration always ends up carrying on in the final year. Key issues at this point, there's construction staging, the GPA agreement, the agreement between the city and the county, and then of course final phase of the right-of-way process is always critical to a project such as this. So the JPA and staging are the 2 of the largest ones that would require some action. So construction staging is a highlight. You've seen this before, but I'll dig in a little deeper on some of this here. So what you'd expect in the spring is the roadway would get reduced in a number of these areas to construction zones, but it would be open to traffic. So in the spring, the intent is commuter traffic is still coming through the area. It's still open. There would be some traffic control set up to move the traffic around. They might be working on outer shoulders. They might move traffic from one side to the other in the spring, and this would intend to occur up until school. So I'll note that's JCP construction half at a time. So that's an important element, and that this is the phase. All of this occurs under traffic. So traffic will be moving around throughout the project on this. A couple of items that are notable: Ironwood Drive, try and get that done under maybe a reduced cost from trying to keep traffic on it at all times and get it done a little bit quicker. There would be some planned weekend closures, understanding that when school's in session or has activities, it's really not an appropriate time to be closing Ironwood. So the idea is reduce any closures to that roadway for major operations such as paving or any other critical operations for the weekends. So they're currently proposing about 2 weekend closures after some discussions on the acceptability of closing Ironwood. So this is the current idea, subject to any comments anyone might have. The detour during those closures would be to go down to White Pine Way. During this phase, keep in mind that this intersection is still open because this median has not been built. So White Pine is still as it is today at this point. Next phase here. Next phase, stage 2. So this is after school. After school is out. So stage 2. You'd still be completing the work in these areas half at a time, south of 6th and north of Ironwood. But stage 2 is actually a hard closure between Ironwood and Dahlgreen, and this is to try and speed up construction. Some of the major grading in the area happens in here, and so it would be fairly difficult to do it half at a time. It could be done, but it's intended to speed up the construction substantially to close this down. So I'll show you the detour shortly again. This will be a very notable phase in the project. So one thing to note is beyond this closure, there's also a couple of hard closures up north of Ironwood. You'd have weekend closures being proposed for the pet underpass and for the utility crossings. So these red boxes are where major operations would be happening on the highway. You'd be seeing the pet underpass being installed probably half at a time up until a weekend, where the contractor would be given the weekend to go after it and close the entire roadway down and try and get across the road with pet underpass. And then same thing with utility crossings. There's some casing pipes and water main that would be going in here in coordination with these city elements that would be done during a full closure to try and get them across the road during the weekends. Everything else, again, is half at a time through this area. Okay, stage 2A, so 4 weeks. At some point in time, probably later on in the summer, you'd have a 4-week closure of the Dahlgreen 6th and County Road 11 intersection. So what you see in the blue arrow, this is maintained during construction. And then Ironwood is maintained throughout, same as the prior phase. This is still half at a time. So there's still construction activity happening up here. One thing that is being looked at here to try and make access to Carver Commons a little bit more, we'll say reasonable for people coming in and out, try and give them another option is a temporary driveway that gets into the Carver Commons area. The intent there being that try and get them, instead of getting them through the roundabout, through the staged area, try and access over here, give them a temp access. Yes.
Carver Square.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Carver Square. Okay. Yeah, can't change it now, but I will say Carver Square now moving forward. my mistake. Sorry about that. So yeah, Carver Square will have a temp access during the roundabout closure to try and make it out of that. So stage 2 local detour, when JCP is closed down, what you'd be seeing is traffic routed through downtown. We did have that investigated a little bit more for what type of traffic congestion would be occurring during the project. If say 40% of the traffic converted and used the detour as opposed to going elsewhere. And because there's really no conflicting traffic, it actually fared reasonably. And so what we will still be watching these areas as to how it performs, and we would expect a fair amount of congestion during your peak hour in here. I mean, it will back up. I mean, right now there's no backups, and during this detour you would see cars queuing up, 4 or 5 cars deep, if not more, at certain times. So some of the local routes, we'll also see elevated levels of traffic through the area to get around. We finding some local routes to navigate through the area, so we're exploring some temporary speed bumps to consider placement at a few locations that we feel that the traffic will really ramp up and try and maintain speeds to a reasonable level through some of these neighborhoods where people might be inclined to make a shortcut. So stage 2 regional detour. This would be for advanced notice for vehicles that are simply looking to get out and around. May not be looking to try and get into Carver or get into Chaska. They might be looking just to get up to the highway. There will be a regional detour to bring people all the way up 43 to do 12. A fair amount of traffic will just opt to take this route as the quickest route up to the highway. So there will be advanced signage for that regional detour. And then this would be fall. This would be after school's back in session. This would be back open, but you'd still have some traffic traffic occurring, or traffic being pushed into single lane construction. Zones where they're, say, working on the median, they would push people to the outer lanes. When they're working on the shoulders of the trails, they might push people into the inner lanes near the median. Effectively, they're going to have 4 lanes built in this phase, but they'll be using probably 2 of them most of the time to try and move people around away from where their work zone is all through the fall. And that's how this final phase is intended to work. Is the pavement will be there for 4 lanes, but there'll still be zones set up all throughout the corridor for turn lanes. There's signal work or lighting, in which traffic will be moved into for most of the fall. Okay, so when all of that staging and traffic detouring is done, what you're going to be seeing is a transformation from our cloudy sky photograph to our nice blue sky where everybody's happy and smiling. So it's a dramatic transformation. I mean, joking aside, it's going to be a tremendous change to the area. It's going to dramatically improve the visuals of the corridor, and it's going to offer the residents and the community members some alternative outdoor trail routes and such. And so there's a great deal of change that's going to occur here. It's going to be very favorable, but it'll be a tough summer to get there. There'll be a lot of activity on this corridor, a lot of traffic moving in a lot of directions that they prefer to just stay on 11, but that's what it's going to take to get it constructed quickly. So anyway, this is the north end of the project. A few updates on how the corridor would look and what is planned in here. And then, of course, 6th Street, current condition and the proposed condition based on all comments to date on landscape and such. So this does include the light poles that we've been talking about here. I think there's a question about light poles in this area, and so we have added those in an approximate location where we think they might be at this point. It's still being designed. This is the final configuration. So costs, the overall project cost is up at around $19 million, still including a fair amount of contingency is right in there. Shown here, $1.5 million is just contingency on bid uncertainty and such. Right away construction is at $50 million. When you get into project costs by participant, you have Carver County at 12.3, City of Carver coming in at about 6.6, so it's about a 65%, 35% split on the cost of this corridor. Again, all of these still carry the contingencies that I'm mentioning on the overall project costs. So we'd like to say that these are conservative numbers, but reasonable estimates based on the 60% level of design. So you can see how that shakes out here. That's right now the planning number for Carver is 6.65. Carver County is 12.5. So if you get into this Carver funding breakdown, how does that shake out? It's the general bonding authority street related at about 3.6, or about half of it is streets in accordance with Carver County cost participation policy. And there's park dedication funds planned here for the project. Brent can detail this out, and as you see fit here, I'll just kind of run through it. The sanitary sewer, what's 100,000, water, about 100. credit from the county for what you would normally put in a county median, which is concrete. They would say we would pay for that concrete. So if you don't put in concrete, you can make use of that $350,000 that would have been paid as concrete towards whatever gets put there. And since the city is doing some landscape elements, that it's $350,000 towards that. Talked about that a little bit in the past. And a water system expansion element of Dahlgren Road improvement payments as payback from a developer that's already been programmed for work on Dahlgren Road. Storm sewer work on the corridor at about $483,000, and then under the existing 20 storm sewer bond, there's an excess of $450,000 that would be applied to this project. Effectively, some of the work that was planned the current project is being put into JCP 11. That money that was planned for that is being used for JCP 11. So that's how the funding breaks down, and I can turn it over to Paul or Brett if you had anything that you wanted to clarify or explain that I did.
Well, I think that's a good lead-in for all the good stuff.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brent, if you want to give me the authority to share, I'll put my PowerPoint up.
I think you have it, Paul.
Does anyone see it or not?
Yep, we see it.
Got it.
Okay. There it is. Okay, I'm ready to go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paul Steinman, Baker Tilly. To give you a brief overview of financial components of this project. Like Brent said at the beginning, it is being done. The borrowing is being done under some special or somewhat new authority called street reconstruction bonds. So we want to talk a little bit about that. That is the purpose of the public hearing this evening. So just an overview, again, these are street reconstruction bonds under Minnesota statutes, they're 475. These street reconstruction bonds can be used as per the statute to pay the local share of county road projects. That's this JCP project. You need to have a 5-year street reconstruction plan drafted, and you need to hold a public hearing on that plan, which we're doing this evening. And 2/3 vote is required to approve the plan. That's 4 out of 5 of you. And as Brad had indicated, there is a special provision in these bonds for a 30-day reverse referendum period. So if a petition is received that is equal to at least 5% of the number of people who voted in your last general election, then this will move to a referendum. There's a public hearing notice that is required for this public hearing, and in that notice, we provided for the issuance of up to $4 million of street reconstruction bonds, erring a bit on the high side, just to give some flexibility so that we would have to redo this entire process if we came in at needing 4.1 million or something. So this 4 million is again a high number. It may be reduced when bids are received, or as you saw the breakout from Dan, to there are other sources of funding that we're already anticipating that may bring that number down to around 3.6 or 3.7. The bonds, when we actually sell them, will also have a utility purpose in the amount of approximately $2 million. And that isn't what this public hearing is for, but I wanted you to be aware of it, because when you see the grand total amount of bonds that you're selling early next year, the number is not going to be less than 4 million. It's going to be the street reconstruction bonds, hopefully 3.6 or 3.7, plus the 1.95 utility bonds. But within the bond structure, we'll purpose out each of those so that it is readily identifiable that the street reconstruction bonds will not exceed the 4 million that we have noticed. So for all of these projects too, we do a quick tax impact calculation. For these street reconstruction bonds, your only source of funds to repay the debt is your levy. So when we run out a structure of $4 million over 20 years, we used current rates as of about 4 weeks ago. The rates would actually be better today, but as of about 4 weeks ago, that equated to an annual debt service levy or an annual debt service payment of about $257,000, of which would be levied in order to pay. Using your pay 20 tax rates and net tax capacity, the impact of that levy is estimated at $118 a year on a home with a $300,000 market value. I might just take 20 seconds here and explain to you the formula that we use. It helps to understand how we get there. If you had nothing else that you levied except this $257,000, a home with a value of $300,000 would pay you $118. That would be their total tax bill. So we just subtract everything else out of your levy, input the 257 against your net tax capacity to get to that impact. So by telling you that, then you can see that there are lots of different opportunities for lowering, adjusting that impact, because your levy doesn't stay the same each year. You levy more or less. You have a debt service levy. You have tax capacity that comes online. For example, the Fleet Farm value. So the Fleet Farm value, when it's captured in TIF, you don't technically, you do levy against it, but those dollars are redirected into development. They don't go into the general fund. So when we add the 200,000 of tax capacity back in for that Fleet Farm value as it comes out of TIF, the impact that it made on this particular issuance was about $3 or $4 a year, I think. So your $118 went up by $3 or $4 if Fleet Farm was still in a TIF. You also have other opportunities, of course, to lower this impact. The reduction of future levies is one. Your levy 21 for pay 22 is next 2 years levy. 21 for 22. That's the last year of debt service on a large issue that you had, your 2013 bond issue. That's about $145,000 a year that you levy for that issue. That will come off, and the idea here is to structure these new bonds around that 2013 issue and that debt service coming off, so that there's a way to help manage and potentially reduce that impact. Next steps, today's public hearing. I have to apologize. I got kind of aggressive on these 3 bullets here: September, October, November. I just got excited about your project, probably, or something. But if you're not bidding the project till November and December, we want to time the sale with when we know how much you need to borrow. So that looks like it will be around December that we'll know. We'll have the project bids in and you'll be awarding bids. So we would probably start the bond process in January, sell in February, and get proceeds in March. That seems to me like closer to the project schedule that you're on. So, and then the spring 2021 start. That's what I have. Happy to take questions.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
I'm gonna just try to get back here to the Brady Bunch screen model. Let's see. First of all, let's do, are there any public comments? Dean? None? Okay. With that, I would like to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll Second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Mr. Merritt, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Glenn, can you unmute? Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mock,
Hi, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayer,
Hi, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
Hi, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion carries. All right, council, any questions on the street reconstruction plan? Go ahead, Lori.
I have some questions. This one might be more for Mr. Paul Steinman, but question on the park dedication. How are we able to take 500,000 from that budget? I think that's great, but I was just surprised. Does it have to do with the underpass?
I can answer that, Councilmember Sayer. So the city's park dedication plan or park master plan, we have a certain amount of trails and the pedestrian underpasses in there, so that contribution has been planned out of the park dedication fund.
Okay.
Proportionate amount.
And then my other one is from Dan's presentation. And throughout this process, Dan's done a great job of educating us on things like some of the concrete and the landscape aren't equal share for cost sharing. So I have just questions about the cost sharing. So there's two items I want to confirm. And I think I know the answer, but like as far as what warrants the design, like the reason for the roundabout, the reason for the traffic light is like it's needed. It's not like, oh, this would be nice to have. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that would have come out of the corridor study, evaluating the current traffic demands against future 20-year and determining whether or not it was necessary. And the determination was that yes, they were necessary for the 20-year volumes.
Okay.
If I could add to that, Councilmember Sayer, because I think there's a kind of a narrative out there, and I think we all experience it if you drive through the corridors. A number of signal lights is when the original corridor study took place. There was a series of traffic modeling to look at whether it should be a roundabout, whether it should be a signal, whether the intersection should be closed, and so what you see in the design represents the best traffic modeling to get the Jonathan Carver Parkway traffic through the corridor. There's in some instances people would prefer a roundabout, in other instances not. The issue with roundabout, and Dan can speak to probably greater detail and more expertise, but you typically don't find a roundabout when the alternating parts of the circle. So if you think of the corridor going north and south, most of the traffic is going north and south. If you align it with another road that's going east and west that doesn't have nearly the amount of traffic, the roundabout is not going to function as it should, and so that's why you're going to see signals toward the northern end of the corridor as opposed to the southern end that will have some roundabouts. And there'll need to be some timing work to make sure that folks can still expeditiously make it through the corridor, but I know that kind of comment has been percolating out there, so that was a good question.
Okay. And then my other is probably not something to answer here. Maybe I just need to be reminded or be sent things on how we came up with that cost sharing. I'm disappointed in the 35-65% split. I thought it would be I don't know. I really don't know where it came from, other than obviously, a lot of diligent work over the course of time, but I had in my head like 25%, and maybe I was just way wrong, or that was just so early in the concept, but.
I can speak to that. It's really, for the most part, not a negotiated number. Councilmember Sayer, the county board or Carver County has a cost share policy anytime the county does a street improvement project. And so it's formula driven. So for example, they'll say curb For a city under 5,000, this county will pay 50%, the city will pay 50%.
Yep.
Take your whole inventory of improvements.
No, I'm familiar with that. I've seen it. It's on their website. It's a 5-page document. But just what I see from that and from previous meetings, I just was anticipating them to take a bigger portion of the share than what's being, and I know it's an estimate, than what's being estimated now. I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, I don't know if I can fully reply to that other than this is the 60% level. This is the share as it splits out at this point. There's certain things that are going to modify that. Again, we've got some conservative numbers here. But some of the things that get into it is, I mean, there's some utility work that would happen with this project. And so that's also included in there. Water management, storm sewer is a big one. That is a big number. If the city doesn't have a whole lot of water coming through the corridor, that number shifts a great deal. In this particular case, there's a great deal of stormwater that is being managed in the corridor, through the corridor. At that point, that drives the city's contribution to the storm system up quite a bit. And so
is that
that's
the same
actually,
as?
What's that?
Sorry, Mr. Lyons. Is that the same as erosion control?
No, that would be your storm pipe system. So it's all that concrete pipe that goes up and down the corridor that ends up getting prorated and costed out based on how much water is coming from the county road versus the city. And so sometimes if it's 90% county, it's going to be 90% county payment. In this particular case, there is quite a bit of runoff from the city of lands. So I would say, based on my experiences with other similar projects, that this is a pretty sizable chunk for Carver for stormwater, just based on the amount of water that's going through the corridor from the city. And then there's some utilities in here, and then there's some landscape priorities that get into it. And so I'm optimistic things will shake out downward as the bids come in. But as of now, this is the best we can offer, and hopefully you're pleasantly surprised on bid day.
But that was it for questions and comments. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Glenn, looks like you're off on mute. Do you have any questions?
I'm all good.
Okay. Joy?
No questions from me. I'm just looking at my last notes, and from a presentation, Dan, that you gave back in early April, the numbers are really similar. I think the project at that point in time you had estimated as around 17 million, with the city share of 4 million. So this is kind of in line with those numbers. So it doesn't seem that much different, I guess, than what we have been presented in the past. So I have no other questions or issues.
All right. Thank you, Joy. Christy?
Yeah, I have a couple. So when we're looking at the landscaping, so we talked about this before. We have, proposed landscaping. So we have a dollar amount that's included in this, but we haven't made decisions on the landscaping yet, on the landscaping plan. Is that right?
Correct. So the Dan's team is kind of preparing a next generation concept that has kind of construction level detail, and then we'll be bringing back that kind of plan to the council for review and comment.
Because I know that there was a few suggestions that we had that might have some cost saving effects, and I know that I've had a few that I've been kind of thinking of since then. Are we going to have a chance to go through all that at the next time we see it, or is that something that you need to know before that?
If you have, so we have adjusted the plan based on the comments we've received from the council. If you have items of significance, it would be probably better for us to know that now and get some consensus from the council, because at the point when we're bringing it back to you, we're going to be pretty close to wanting to get the project out for bid, plus or minus some what I call like minor moderate comments. But if the council has significant pieces that they want studied, that would be a good time to share that.
Okay, so I think, at least for me, knowing that we had some comments about what we would like to see, but there wasn't necessarily a general consensus. We all had a few of this and a little bit of that, to then get something that's already set in place. I don't want to say it's, it's ready to go, but it sounds like if we're going to be looking at some plans that are a little bit more involved, I feel like we're skipping maybe a spot there in the middle of saying, okay, here's what we envisioned, and then let's take a look at it, and then if we need something else revised, and then we go to that next point.
I maybe misspoke. So my understanding was like other than like maybe the tree species and maybe the number of trees or the types of plantings that the council was in line with, I think it was the mid-level concept. So if there are specific items that I'm overlooking or I didn't hear from the council, that's what I heard was our direction. So,
okay.
So
yeah, and I know that when we came down to it, it was kind of. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead.
We went with the mid-range generally. When in looking at some of these plans, and I've been driving the area and looking, I am curious if we have trees on one side of the road already, and now we're adding more. I mean, if we're looking at that entire length of corridor, do we need to double up on having our evergreens on one side and then adding like deciduous trees right next to it? I mean, I don't know what that cost would be if we were to take out that entire line of trees because we have trees on that side already.
That's a comment that we heard and we've addressed and that you'll see. And so we, plus or minus a few changes, that's the kind of comment we'd expect to get from the council at the next round. I guess
Okay.
I'm more thinking of if you wanted to add some major design elements or take out some design elements that change some quantities for concrete, etc. Those are the types of things. So the comments that you've made previously, Councilmember Mott, are and the rest of the council are comments that we're incorporating into it. And I by no means mean that if the council's not comfortable with moving forward the next time you see the landscape plan, we will take the opportunity to give you another opportunity to look at a revised plan. I didn't want to give the impression that we were going to be in an opportunity to kind of totally redesign it, but I feel like we've got some pretty good seeds for what you wanted to see there, plus or minus some perspective changes.
Okay. I did have one other comment, and Dan, maybe you. I know we talked about this before, but when I'm looking at the roundabout right now, and in the packet, and I do get a little nervous about the trees in the roundabout and having sight lines. I know you said that your studies have said that it's okay. I'm still a little bit nervous about the amount of traffic that's going to be coming through there, and when you're coming from every direction, you've got some trees with some height, and now tree types can always change, but when we're looking at these crab trees, they're a smaller, more dense tree. I don't think it's going to be as easy to see through them, so I am a little bit nervous about the sight lines of having actual trees in the center of that roundabout.
Okay. It's a good question, and sight lines are important to roundabouts, and so it is something that gets looked at. The very odd and kind of counterintuitive thing about roundabouts that is kind of a long study-based finding is the center third is best blocked for the viewer, for the driver. Outside of that center third, you want to be able to see because you want to be able to see people coming around the circle. And so you're actually looking specifically for a sight line that gets you to a certain point in the roundabout, but looking right across it, they actually find them to be more effective for the drivers that they're focusing on the cars to the left as opposed to cars across. Because that gets the driver to be looking at that car that they're supposed to be yielding to, which is just to the left and across the street. And so that's why the center third can have obstacles. And in some cases, you'll see like on Highway 7, they actually deliberately block the roundabout in the middle so you can't see across.
Okay, that actually makes really good sense. Thank you for that explanation. I'm thinking back to roundabouts I've been in that don't have anything in the center and looking at the traffic, and yeah, it becomes a little chaotic. So, okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And then my other one, I wanted to talk about downtown when we have the detour coming on 40 and through downtown. And I see that we are looking at adding the temporary speed bumps. One thing that we talked about is that right turn that comes off of 6th Street onto Main Street. That is a fast turn taking cars right now because there's no stop sign there. How are we going to be addressing that? Is there going to be a speed bump either way at that corner to slow people down? When you're taking the right from Broadway to head out of town on 40, it's fast. There's no stop sign, and it's the only part of that four-way intersection that doesn't have a stop sign.
Yeah, let's see. I'm just looking up the intersections, and I can answer your question in general. Your concerns are valid, in that we really are going to need to adjust to the driver patterns that we're seeing with this detour, and try and take it head on here. So, I mean, I think it's valid to be concerned that people are going to be trying to make it somewhere quick, when they're on the detour. So, more specifically though, can you ask what your thoughts are for the mitigation? Because the speed bumps are really just to control the speed at which people are traveling. If and those are local streets, you have that full control to do that.
Right. So I'm not the engineer. I'm not sure which is the right direction to go, but I think this needs to happen before the closure, not waiting to see what happens and then add it after the closure. Whether we put a speed bump across, they're spaced down at all the intersections on Broadway so that you hit that last speed bump before you take a right to head out on 40, or whether we put a temporary stop sign there.
Councilmember Mock, are you talking about Main and Broadway or 6th?
Yes. What am I saying? Did I not?
Main and Broadway is what she's talking about.
Okay,
Yep.
I heard 6.
Yeah, I heard 6
I
too.
probably did. I'm sorry.
I knew what you meant.
Put all the speed bumps on 6th Street you want.
I guess I hear that, and I can take that charge on and advocate to the county that we make a 4-way stop at Broadway and Main.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to mitigate the concern that you're addressing.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I think that's the best one. But again, I'd like that to happen as we close it, not waiting to see after the fact.
Correct.
Yep.
Problem, so.
Yeah, I was looking at 6th Street, so I was a little off in location on that. So yeah, but the all-way stop. Yep. No, that's fair enough.
I knew what I was talking about in my head. I'm sorry.
It all works in the end here. We just keep going at it here. We get there.
All right. Thank you. So, I know this is something that we've talked about before, but I'm asking for maybe just a little bit of a reminder. We're adding that stop sign or stop light at Monroe. And we've got a lot of stoplights right there in a row. So how does it get timed through there so that traffic actually moves in the morning? There's a lot of traffic that's going up 11 right now to hit 212. How are those stoplights get timed? Because we're going to hear our complaints from people that I sat here for this long, and also it's a change, obviously.
Well, that's a good, fair question, because in a corridor like this, in many cases, you interconnect the signals, and that is the answer that everybody would be looking for, is avoid this so that we're not stopping at each one without them knowing what the other's doing. So we'll be reviewing the county's signal plans, and one of the things that we'll be looking for is the interconnect. Because what happens is you connect the signals up at 212, and then the next signal down, Monroe, should be timed such that as it releases traffic at the interchange, it's time to keep traffic running through Monroe. And so we'll have to see if it's interconnected all the way to Ironwood. I would expect that they'd be interconnected to Monroe, but I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, but that would be a common practice. So.
Okay, that's all the comments I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So just real quickly, my notes from this were that, first of all, I appreciate the background in the narrative at the beginning of this, and just really reinforcing that this is something that we have been working on as a council, as a community, as a city, since 2015. 2016. So this is something that's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to see it going, although I think we're still at the point where it's a rather rather daunting undertaking. Let's see, Dan, I just had a question. Do you know how the right-of-way acquisition process is going?
I do know that there hasn't been any snags in the process. Generally speaking, I know the right of way very well, and he's exceptional. And so generally speaking, once he makes contacts, he identifies pretty quickly if there's an issue. And so we haven't heard about any challenges at this point. And so I would say generally speaking, good. But we will update you if he gives us any notes otherwise. So.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And then, Mr. Steinman, I just wanted to clarify. So this will have tax impact in 2022, correct, or 2021?
That's an excellent question. So if we sell bonds around February of 2021, your first payment will be due February 1st of 2022, which would have to come from your 2021 levy, pay 21, which is levy 20, pay 21, or 2/1/22. So it will have levy impact this fall.
Okay.
Or you'll levy this fall for pay next year.
For our 2021 budget year.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. That are the only questions I have. Did anybody else have any other questions that have popped up? Seeing no from Christy, I'm seeing. Oh.
Yeah, Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, Brent.
Well, can you clarify that again? So the first payment would be in the February of 22, correct?
First, right. The first payment would be in February 1st of 2022.
Right.
Of
So the
which
the first levy would then be levy of 21, pay of.
No. So you need levy dollars from pay 21, which you get in December of 21 to make your 2/1/22 payment. So so it's levy year, bond year is year. But yeah, because you get your last collection from 21 for pay 21 in December of 21, and you use that collection to make your 2/1/22.
We good? Brent? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 132-20, adopting the 20 to 24 street reconstruction plan.
Is that your motion?
No, I said I'd entertain a motion.
Pull it up.
But I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 132-20, adopting the 2020 to 2024 street reconstruction plan.
I'll second that.
Okay. I knew that's what you were looking for, Glenn. All right. We've got a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Hi, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayer,
Nay, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
Hi, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, the motion passes on a 4-1 vote. 4 ayes, 1 nay. All right, and that's what we needed to move forward with this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Moving ahead to item number 7, the consent agenda. Christy, I understand you want to pull something?
Yeah, I would like to pull item 7.6, approve amendments to the employee reference manual.
Okay. With that pulled, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda without 7.6 approve amendments.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Aye, Christie Mott.
Councilmember Sayer,
I, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
I, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes. All right, Christy, let's talk about 7.6.
Okay, if we can look down to section 16, letter C, overtime. It's on the actual page 10 of the document. So I'm hoping that Brent or Chad could maybe explain a little bit better what we are changing here, because we have, you know, in excess of 40 hours, now it says 8 hours worked from this time to this time. Can I just get a little bit more explanation behind those changes?
Sure. So the time is just meant to signify one working day. In the past, or a number of years ago, the cities had a provision, which is a kind of a typical provision of you get overtime after 40 hours worked in 1 week. Two collective bargaining agreements ago, that was negotiated to 8 hours per day. So any time worked over 8 hours per day was overtime, and it was fairly insignificant, kind of left untouched in the existing employee reference manual, because frankly we didn't have any non-exempt employees that were covered. All the non-exempt employees were covered in the collective bargaining agreement. We now have an employee that's not in the union and is non-exempt, and so without the change, they're in essence penalized for not being a member of the union. And so I thought it fit to make that change to 8 hours a day rather than having them be subject to 40 hours per week.
Okay, so this is in line with our collective bargaining agreement. So technically this one doesn't have. Does this cover all of them then? Does this cover all of that?
You say that.
Sorry, all of the employees who are non-exempt, whether they are part of the union or not part of the union.
Correct.
Okay.
And so like the example would be all the department head positions, the public services superintendent, the building official, and the city manager's position are exempt from overtime. So this covers the one employee that's not covered under the collective bargaining agreement, but is non-exempt.
Okay. And just to reiterate, so this is completely in alignment with our union agreements then?
Correct.
Okay. That is all I had for questions on that. So do you want me to procedurally, I make a motion to approve item 7.6?
Correct.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve item 7.6 from the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mayor, can you do another roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Aye, Christie Mott.
Councilmember Sayer,
I, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
I, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes unanimously. We have no unfinished business on the agenda for tonight, but under new business, we have 9.1, the ATV UTV ordinance. Mr. Harris.
Good evening, Council. Before you tonight, you have two separate ordinances, an ordinance that amends.
Hold on a second. Sorry, Glenn, I was.
Larry's really garbled. I can barely hear him.
Can you really speak up? I think he has to get you through through here for the most part.
Okay, does that help, Glenn?
Yes, it does, Larry.
All right, I'll get right on the microphone. The council has before tonight two separate ordinances. One ordinance which amends Chapter 46 relating to ATVs and UTVs, and a separate ordinance which is just a ministerial change to your fee schedule for the fee for the permit that's required. I think the council is very well apprised of this. This is the third meeting, either a work session or a regular session, that this has been before you. The changes in the final draft are pretty simple and straightforward. There's one minor one relating to ATVs. I I cleaned up some language because ATVs have certain statutory rights to run in county road ditches, and I wanted to make sure that was preserved. The requirement to display a...
Larry, I didn't catch that last sentence about
What was preserved?
All right. By state statute, an ATV, as opposed to a UTV, you know, the smaller units, have certain statutory rights to run in county road ditches. So I made that clear in the ordinance, that our ordinance isn't saying, we're not regulating what an ATV can or can't do in a county road ditch under state statute. Before, arguably, we were saying you couldn't do that, and I viewed that as being in contravention to state statute, so I just cleaned that up. The state statute controls. Everybody okay with that?
Quit bobbing when you're talking.
All right.
Did you guys understand him? Did you thumbs up if we're good?
Most of it. I got the gist of it. The state statute overrules everything.
Right. What the state statute says is that an ATV, not a UTV, can run in a county road ditch. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that the ordinance didn't say anything in contravention to that. Secondly, I added the permit requirement and the permit sticker. I included the basic rudimentaries after consulting with Brent about what should be in the application. Third, all the references to JCP and restrictions on JCP were taken out, and Steamboat Days has been capitalized. That's it for the UTV ordinance. Brent might want to address, Brent made some calculations as to what he felt was an appropriate fee for the permit. Because the city runs their fees through a fee schedule that you adopt annually. The second ordinance is a simple, about one paragraph ordinance that says the fee for a UTV permit's $125. I'm here to answer any questions. If there aren't any, I think this addresses what the council wants, and it would be appropriate to adopt the two ordinances.
All right. Mr. Merrick, do you want to address the fee?
I can answer questions that related to it.
Okay. Christy, go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is $125 for 3 years. Okay, that seems like a lot to me for a sticker that goes on your car. And I would like to see that less. I'm not sure exactly what that number looks like. I'd like to hear maybe from staff what was chosen, but my initial gut reaction is that needs to be a lesser amount.
Sure. So I can address that part of it. We did essentially a calculation that involves, in essence, the amount of time that Vicki or the city clerk's office will have to do to monitor this. So we'll have to send out notices to the applicants, similar to like a license tab piece. We'll be monitoring the registration from year to year. The sticker, so I put 3 hours of time and then $5 for the sticker. So 3 hours for that 3-year period at $40 an hour. That means $120 plus the $5 sticker.
Well, I think we're overthinking it a little bit. I heard you say that one of the processes you were looking at in this is that we contact them. I think this has to be on the owner to contact us. I don't think that could maybe cut down some of it, and then we have enforcement after that. You know, our town officers, if they see someone without a sticker or it's not the correct years or whatever that might be, I think that is their point then, that they can enforce that. But I think that we can maybe cut down that we don't need to contact people. That's on them to get a hold of us. And really, when I was at what we're asking them, it's a pretty simple form of, you know, nine slots to fill out, and you know, I don't know beyond that. We put it in a file and we mail them a sticker.
Yeah, so it's the council's prerogative. I based it off of how the state license tab system works. So if the council doesn't want to have us send out notices for in essence, tab expiration, that certainly would cut down the amount of time to administer.
Anything else, Christy?
I was trying to think of numbers. I wanted to hear what Brent had to say about why that number was the first one that we came up with. But I mean, I'm thinking, $25 a year is, if 20 even, is probably plenty, depending on what. Like I said, I needed to know the cost of the sticker, so if it's $5, so I'm just gonna throw out 20 to 25 at the most. I saw some other people were waiting to speak, so I'll stop.
All right. Questions, comments? Joy, go ahead.
So I'm with Christy on the 125 seems high. I also would agree that we could eliminate this working like tabs where, you get a postcard in the mail that says, hey, your tabs are up for renewal, come and apply, and really put the onus on the owner. I have a feeling that the owners of these UTVs would be happy to do that and be responsible if the fee were only like $20, $25, as Christy suggested. So I suggest we take it as more of just an application processing cost and leave it at that.
Any other comments, Joy?
Nope.
All right. Glenn, go ahead.
From the people that I spoke to that, when they go to these towns and pick up fees and their tabs at other locations, it's $40 annual fee. So you can look at 120 or you can look at $40 a year, just to run around town on your UTV. Granted, it's only for 6 months a year, but that's pretty much the going rate, is about $40 a year. That's all I got.
I'm still more comfortable with something that looks like 20 or 25.
So I think especially given the rationale that Brent shared, I don't have, and with Glenn's background of this being the going rate, I don't have any issue with the 125. I think there does need to be some kind of process in place where folks would get some kind of reminder about their tabs, because, boy, I mean, just think about your cars, and maybe I'm the only one who experiences this, but if there wasn't, even though there's a sticker that says exactly what month they expire, it always comes up as a surprise to me. So I am in favor of $125. The question that I had in reading this that I kind of wanted to re-explore and kind of pose to council is that, especially if we are asking these individuals for proof of insurance, the 3-year term has me kind of scratching my head a little bit. So if we want, insurance is only good for, depending on where they have these items insured, 6 months or a year. So having the 3-year term just doesn't make sense to me. I would almost prefer to see this be an annual sticker instead of something that's good for 3 years. And then
You're going to add a lot to the cost.
What's that, Glenn?
I believe that you're going to add a lot of cost to it, and it's going to turn a lot of people off. Every now and then it's okay to assume some things. Most people that are going to have these going down the roads have insurance. They just don't buy insurance for 1 year on these because they're running them all the time. So I don't have a problem with the 3-year span on it. They'll come in, they'll pay their $125, and they're good for 3 years. If they don't have insurance and they get in a wreck, that's on them.
Okay.
Glenn, I'm curious. You had a question. You said that you had talked to other people who.
Yeah, I talked to some UTV drivers. When they go out to Wyoming, when they go around in South Dakota and stuff, there's a fee to ride the trails and stuff, and it's usually $40 annual fee.
Right. So, but this isn't South Dakota or Wyoming, and this isn't like specific. I still think 125 is too high. I think we need to come down.
It's $40 annual fee.
I get what you're saying, Glenn. I also think that is too high. I think that is too high. I think 125 is too high. I think that we are allowed to set whatever fees we think are appropriate here. I appreciate that you talked to other people about some of the cost of the trails, but I just think it's overcharging for a $5 here. So I see Lori's been raising her hand.
I was going to say, Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, I can only say for sure one city that I know for a fact what they charge. And I don't really want to mimic what state of Utah does because, you know, they may be investing more and actually have a full trail system to offer. But for what we have to offer, we're not looking for the money to support that. It's more the administrative fees. I do like, thank you, Mr. Harris, the 3 years. I do know for sure that Red Wing, the city, is $30. So I would like to split that in half. I don't think we have as much to offer. So maybe then that's $15 times 3, which would be $45 for a 3-year permit. That would be one thing I would like amended. Otherwise, I support everything in the ordinance.
You lost me on the math, Lori.
Yep. And you know, maybe it's something we can revisit, but as a starting point, I've come up with $15 a year. What I'm using is half of what Red Wing charges. They have maybe some more trails to offer. And then make that $15 a 3-year permit. So 15 times 3 brings us to the $45 for that administrative portion and have the sticker.
I think the argument, Lori, can be made that because these aren't trails, perhaps it's worth more, right? Because these are paved streets that they're riding on versus trails. Just a counter argument.
Lori, I like what you're saying. I think if we were to do $15 a year plus $5 for the permit, that's $50, and I would be so comfortable with that.
I would say, Mayor, if I could address the council.
Go ahead.
Mayor, council, even at the $45, if staff's not monitoring tabs, in essence, tabs and permits on an annual basis, if we're just processing the application, $45 is an adequate number to process that.
Any further discussion?
If we're not doing any of the monitoring.
Correct. Vicki and her team would just be taking the application, verifying the requirements, filing it, issuing the sticker, and sending that at the permit holder information to the deputy. So that's $45 over 3 years would satisfy those costs.
I think especially since if we're going the 3-year term route, I think that we're going to need to have some kind of postcard reminder or something in place so that folks remember.
I am completely the opposite. I'm not in favor of it. I think it's just extra process and tape isn't needed. This isn't a car they're driving every day. They're going to get it out, you know, in the springtime or whatever it is and be like, oh, that's right. You know, they check them over. They wash them after they come back because they're dirty. I'm not for over-regulating this. I think at 3 years, you've given us the information we need. $15 a year, if that covers the staff cost. I am in favor of the $5 just permit cost on top of that. But other than that, I think it's just adding process where it's not necessary.
I disagree. But any other further comments? Joy, are you looking to say something?
With some minor Googling, it seems like most cities in southern Minnesota, New Prague, New Ulm, Austin, Le Sueur, Rochester, those are the ones I immediately found, are an annual permit anywhere from $20 to $30 for that 1 year. And it is just an application for a permit. There's nothing about, you know, we'll send you a reminder or anything like that, but it's annual. Would we consider an annual instead? And just make it at $20 a year? And then there's no monitoring of it whatsoever.
I would support that, just knowing more that that's cities similar to.
Yeah, that was a quick Google search over the last few minutes. So not super scientific or thorough, but it was 5 data points at least.
Yep,
It's
and it aligns
pretty similar. Yeah.
with similar cities.
I think just to trigger people's memories, I think that that would be easier to do it every year. I think
Yeah.
3 years people are gonna forget, am I on my third year, am I not, where are we at? Does the sticker say it, does it not? I'll have to look at the paperwork.
Yeah.
I just think it's more straightforward.
I can get on board with yearly, as long as the price is looking at like $15 or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly on board with it every year.
Well, and I think too, at the end of the day, I think we're talking about a handful of people who are gonna register through the city. So this is a lot of juice. I'm not sure if it's worth the squeeze.
If you want to do it annually, you're going to have an annual sticker too, which is another $5 every year. So you're looking at $25 anyway. Just saying. In accordance with what the quick Google search pulled up.
It sounds like though, from what we've been talking about now, with the amount of work that it will take on our end, it really is just making sure it's filled out, having a file, getting the permit sent out. So maybe $15, including the $5 sticker, is actually going to be enough, considering the time it will take to do that. Brent, what do you think? I realize you don't want to get into the into this with us, but
I would say just to be abundantly straightforward with the council, the annual application fee is going to be, even though it's probably feels more natural, it's actually, I think, going to cause some issues. One, it's instead of every 3 years, Vicky's team's going to be having touch points with these applicants every year. And I frankly think there's going to be some unintended consequences with some of our residents, not getting the sticker in time, and there's just going to be more touch points with the sheriff's office because they're not going to have the sticker. And so just kind of listening back to the council's previous discussions about not wanting to kind of burden the resident and the user with this, I think 3 years is adequate. And ultimately, we're talking about the difference between on the 125 to 45. It's a difference of 60. We're talking about $60. So if you did $15 essentially a year, $45. My unsolicited recommendation is $45 for 3 years. I think Vicki, if we could see her and hear her, would prefer the 3-year administration of this rather than having people come in every year and then the sheriff's office maybe getting after somebody because it's the first nice day in April and they want to use their UTV, but they haven't gotten their their permit renewed, and if it's every 3 years, they can just skip that step. So I don't think there's any right answer. This is 100% council prerogative and opinion, but if you're asking from a staff perspective, that's where I would look.
thank you for explaining that. And it does make sense now that you say that, though, that it's you're going to have to. This is going to be more work because it's coming every single year. So, I mean, I guess it depends what the rest of the council feels too. I mean, 3 is fine with me. It was originally fine with me. For this working together, if 1 year is what the consensus is, but I think 3 is fine at the lower price. And especially thank you with your donation, Brett.
Any other thoughts?
I'll support the
I can get on
3.
board with
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, I'd like to see $20 and a $5 fee for $65. I'll split the difference with you. And that way we can make sure that Vicky's time and staff's time is worth it. And in case there's any inflation that's going to hit on the cost of the stickers and everything like that. We need to make sure that that's all taken care of as well. It's not $60 for a 3-year permit. It's $20 a year. That's not a problem. Not a problem at all. You know, if they're spending $30,000 or $15,000 to $20,000 on their rigs for $60 to operate them in the city of Carver all the time, I got no issues with that.
Well, I don't want to pretend to know anyone's financial situation.
It's $20 a year, Chris. It's $20 a year.
I hear you. I understand that. So, I am initially inclined to still go along with the $15 and then the $5 for the actual permit, which would be $50. But I would like to hear what everyone else thinks of that too.
I think we're spending entirely too much time talking about this. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I think we need to know the dollar amount, don't we? Before we move forward. I don't think we're taking too much time. I think we need to get to.
I was hoping whoever would make the motion would put the dollar amount in there.
I'll make a motion to accept or to bring forth the UTV ordinance at a 3-year licensing fee, proof of insurance at $20 a year and $5 for the 3-year permit for a total of $65.
Excuse me, Mayor Johnson.
Go ahead.
I think it would be appropriate, I don't know if Larry's there, but it would be appropriate if the council does take action on the ordinance first. It doesn't include the dollar amount.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just approve the language and the years, and then you can address the fee separately. That's the second one.
Yeah.
Got it. Understood. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would concur with Mr. Merrick.
Okay.
It appears the council has consensus on a 3-year permit, just on what the fee is. So adopting the ordinance with the changes should probably be the first step, because
Okay.
that's not controversial.
Okay. So did you guys get that? We have to kind of go in the order that it's laid out in the packet. So ordinance first, and then we'll talk fees.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance number 07-2020. That's the first one, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
All right.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McKnight and a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mock,
Aye, Christie Mock.
Councilmember Sayer,
Hi, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
Aye, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Nay, Courtney Johnson. All right, the motion passed 4-1. All right, so that brings us now to talking about the fee schedule. Entertain a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance.
Rick, hand up. I'm sorry. I don't know if you saw that, Courtney, because your head was down.
I didn't, I'm sorry, I was flipping my agenda.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Glenn.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 08-2020, an ordinance to amend the city's fee schedule to impose a fee for the UTV permit under section 46-208 of the city code, and the fee schedule as a 3-year permit, proof of insurance at $20 a year plus a $5 one 3-year tag.
Excuse me, Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
would you mind amending your motion just to list the total fee? Because if it's a 3-year permit, we'll just need the total fee. So what I think I'm hearing you say is $65.
Correct. I'll make a motion to approve the total fee for $65.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Henry
Second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll? Larry, do you have anything? No? Okay, sorry, I thought I. Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Nay, Christie Mock.
Councilmember Sayer,
Nay, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
Aye, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes with 3 ayes and 2 nays. All right, Thank you all. All right, 9.2, the street maintenance project. Mr. Schmidt.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to be talking about the 2020 street maintenance project and bringing you some bid results tonight. So, as you're aware, we've been talking about street maintenance a few times here this summer, and the council had previously identified 2 streets in the Carver Bluff neighborhood. The first was Carver Bluff Parkway from County Road 40 to Carver Creek Circle, and the second one was Carver Creek Circle itself. The other area of town was on Birchie Hill Drive and High Street, and that area was previously authorized to be constructed with the 2019 street project. So tonight what I'm bringing you is the area in Carver Bluffs. So the city engineer has prepared the final plans and specs for that project. We're calling the 2020 street maintenance project. And we opened bids on July 29th, 2020. We had really good bid results. 5 bids received, which was really good, and a nice range of bids as well, ranging from about 113,000 up to 177,000. So we had a really good competitive range of bids. The low bid received was by Mulnow Trucking of northern Minnesota. Again, and that was in the amount of $113,788. I have attached the bid tabulation to the council packet. And like I mentioned, the wide range of bids indicates the bidding process was competitive. Just so you know, the engineer's estimate was about $166,000. So we were kind of on the high end of the bidding range, but yeah, we got a really good bid. So all in all, if the council wishes to proceed with the project, we'd be looking at constructing the project this fall. I'd anticipate, the soonest start would probably be end of August, time contracts are executed. And the project has a substantial completion date of October 2nd. So it'll be a pretty quick project here this fall, but again, really good bid results. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So.
Questions, council?
I just realized I didn't start my video.
I thought you intended to not be on camera, but go ahead, Joy.
My only quick question is, I know you talked about the timeline to complete. What's the total impact to residents? I mean, is this a couple of days shutdown, or what is it on these streets?
Okay, yeah, so the process will be, so the contractor will come in, they'll reclaim the streets, and what's going to happen next, so there's a couple areas where there's some curb that has to get repaired because of some pretty severe settlement that had happened. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag time there because they'll have to pour the curb and let it set up for a few days before they can shape up the gravel base and pave it. So with the reclaiming and the curb, that'll probably take, maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. And then final tolerancing and paving will take another week or so, probably. So I'm guessing 3 to 4 weeks is probably what the project will take.
Okay. Okay. Just because part of this section is on a cul-de-sac, how do residents get to their homes?
Yep, that's a really good question, Joy. So we have it in the specifications that the contractor needs to be able to provide driveway access to the residents at the end of the day. So, obviously there's going to be times, during the day where they're working right in front of their driveway where we'll have to communicate with those residents if they have any special access or delivery needs. We'll have an inspector on site to help kind of coordinate that. So we'll work through that with them, but at the end of the day, it's written out that they can get back into their driveways. So.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Merritt.
Just one item for the mayor and council. We were pleasantly surprised by the bid amounts. And so one of the items that I've asked Dan and Aaron to do is just get an amount to look at. One of the roads that we were planning to do is Ramsey in 2021. And even if it's just a budgeting exercise to get a number, it looks like we might get a good result. And based on what that number is, in any event, I'll bring it back to the council and see if we want to, or if you want to amend your strategy for, if it's a really great number, maybe you want to take that on in 2020 and try to finish off at least those two sections of the Carver Bluffs area. So with your support, we'll bring a number back for you at a future meeting.
Yes. So thank you, Brent. It's almost as if you could anticipate my question. I was going to ask if there were any efficiencies in lobbing that into the 2020 project, since it's so close in vicinity and is a like work to what we're doing on Carver Creek Circle. So thank you for anticipating that question and answering it before I even had to ask it. I also just wanted to say kudos, Aaron. I love low bids, and especially when they line up with high engineer estimates. So really well done. I was thrilled to see that it came in at $52,000 less than what we were thinking it would. Any other questions? Go ahead, Christy.
When we're talking about lumping that next section in, if the numbers are coming in well, being that you have mobilization costs, are we looking to just see what the company that we are going with their bid would add into it, not doing a full rebid, because then your mobilization charges add up again?
Correct.
Correct, okay. All right, that was it, thank you.
Right. Glenn, hey, Lori, I don't know, we can't see you anymore. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I'd love to see you if that's, there you are. Okay. Glenn or Lori, any questions? No, no from Glenn. Lori? Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 130-20 awarding a contract to Bullnow Trucking LLC in the amount of $113,788 for the 2020 street maintenance project.
I'll second.
All right, we have a second or a motion by Councilmember McKnight, and only because I don't know that he seconded anything tonight, we'll give that one to Glenn Henry. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry.
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott.
Aye, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayre.
Aye, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight.
Aye, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, 9.3, the COVID-19 pandemic update. Mr. Merrick.
Yep. Mayor and Council, before I get to that, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but I don't know if the council was going to address the appointment of the HPC. I
was going to get to that next.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
On the COVID-19 update, I just been making this a routine, just checking in. So this is an opportunity for the council to ask any questions or make comments on our strategy. We're kind of holding a forum. We have kind of moved back into kind of our full Zoom meeting. I think there are some challenges if we'd all be in the same room and how we can communicate clearly with a mask on. So I think we'll be looking to continue to employ this strategy. If the council wants to do something different, we're certainly open to that. We're going to take your lead. As it relates to building rentals, and I think it's apropos that we discuss this. Dean Nelson with the Lions came in. Our past practice has been as a kind of an informal trigger, is that once the governor lifts that restriction to 25 in an indoor space, that you'd open up facility rentals. Excuse me. We have made some exceptions for the two, or soon to be two blood drives. Obviously, we're holding the election in the space, or the primary and soon to be the general. So if you are inclined to change that strategy or make an exception for the Lions, I think now would be a good time to get that feedback, because if the council did want to do that, I do think that the drive up poses some logistical issues that I'd like to, if they're going to do the drive-throughs with us. I'd like to have Chad and Deputy Katie Sandberg meet with me and talk about how traffic would be moved through there so that we don't end up creating some type of problems in the downtown. But issues like that are important if you don't feel comfortable with holding the event. So I'll start with that first to see if there's any feedback we can share.
Sure. I can go first. We have not opened up, with very few exceptions, our indoor space. And like Brent mentioned, we have been kind of going with that threshold from the governor of 25 people indoors. I like consistency. I think, we have kind of had a super informal policy, but a policy nonetheless of keeping that restriction. And while I support the Lions and they do great work, I don't know that, I feel that if we open it up to the Lions, we're going to have to open it up more broadly. So I would not be in favor of opening it up for the drive-through pork chop supper. I also have concerns, Brent, like you said, logistically and kind of getting cars in and out of here. Also, just with the timing of what would traditionally be Steamboat Days weekend. I know that the Steamboat Days Committee agonized and really put some long, hard thought into if they were going to have the festival or not, and in deciding not to do it. I just don't want folks to come downtown expecting a big event and having issues arise from that. Go ahead, Lori.
Yep, I have a different take. I would support it. My first thoughts were that it's volunteers, so that are going to work. So if they're comfortable with it and they want to, the Lions will schedule food. I would think signs up. So for that reason, I feel comfortable with it, as well as whoever's going to participate or pick up their food. It's not an essential service or something somebody has to do, but if it's something they're comfortable doing, be kind of a customer, then they can do it. I have good faith in that they'll handle the logistics of how to keep people from just socially distant and still keep traffic flowing. So it's something I could support. I hear the concern that then we also open this up to similar groups, and that wouldn't change my thoughts. So I do support the idea.
So just so I'm clear, Lori, you're saying open it up to all groups?
Open it up to whoever wants to make the reservation. We can't say no to one group. Just, it's not based on the group. It's for if they're using just the kitchen, or they're using it kind of as, they're not congregating inside, they're working in the kitchen. Maybe we could say, yes, face masks required. They're doing some of the cooking outside, and then imagine they're delivering the food to the somebody in the passenger window or somebody driving by. But it's going to be up to the volunteers that are going to participate at the Lions side, as well as the customers that decide to go. So I guess I could support, so it's not just because it's Lions, it's allowing them to, decide whether or not they want to use it. But I don't think we need to say no to a rental reservation. But that's just my feedback.
All right, thank you. Christine?
Can I ask Brent one question quick, just so I'm clear? Do you know, what is it right now for indoor spaces? How many people could actually be in the hall right now? 10, okay. And then I had a hard time hearing Dean. Granted, I am also on the Lions Club, so I want to make that very transparent and clear that I'm on the Lions Club. Dean had asked me, or mentioned this to me. I sent him to Brent as staff to talk with Brent and bring it to the council. I couldn't hear Dean very well though tonight when he was talking. So when he was saying a drive-through, was he meaning to go, like people would walk up the ramp and then they would,
No, driving in their cars. So
Driving in their cars,
like a contactless. Although I haven't taken a look. He dropped the some documents at the podium, and I haven't grabbed them.
Okay, Brent.
when I talked to Dean this morning, from our conversation, it sounded like it would be a hybrid of folks kind of a typical drive-through, but then also people maybe parking on a side street and walking up. So I think it'd be my understanding of that hybrid of a drive-through and maybe like a walk-up service, whatever. And I haven't seen the plan that we dropped off, but that's my understanding.
So as a Lions member, I'm gonna sit back and I'd like to hear what everyone else's views are before I see.
All right. Joy, go ahead.
So if the Lions could keep it to, 10 or less within the building and 25 or less outside the building, and that includes the Lions staff who are either cooking food outside or handing off food to customers, and some sort of customers within that vicinity at any period of time, I guess that kind of meets the requirements, but I'm having a hard time visualizing how the traffic will go just because our downtown is so small, and just wondering how that will really work. I don't know how many people they intend, how many normally they get for these types of events. Is it 50 people? Is it 100 people? 150? I don't know, right? So understanding a lot more of those details would be really important. I guess in my mind, it would be different if this event were held at a facility with a parking lot that can be driven through. Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like our transit station kind of thing, where there is a clear traffic pattern, it's spread out, you can fit a lot of vehicles in, versus our couple blocks in downtown. But again, I'd have to see more details to really say yay or nay, and I'm open to hearing more about it.
Glenn? You're on mute. Glenn, you're on mute.
Grandkid just came in from hockey. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure Christy would have better numbers of how many plates, but it'll probably be 400 to 500 if I'm not. I wouldn't be too far on line with that number, would I, Christy?
I think you're looking at maybe 3 to 4, and that, let's remember, is a sit-down dinner that families go and things like that. This is an unknown territory, but I would say 3 to 4 would be a safe number because they always vary. But if that helps.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. We did have a couple of blood drives, correct? And we opened up the hall for the blood drives, correct? Right.
Yeah, there was one earlier in the year, Brent. I don't remember what month that was. And there's one coming up scheduled here very soon.
And if that's the case, drawing blood seems to be a lot more dangerous to me than letting the Lions cook their pork chops and feed everybody. I don't have any issues at all with opening it up for the Lions for their big fundraiser. I just got no problems at all with it.
Okay. Should I go now?
Sure, go ahead, Christy.
So, I've discussed with Dean some of this, earlier before the whole Steamboat Days debacle. But I feel like I have his vision, and I think that there is some of the walk up, and they certainly be expected. And I'll just, the lines, I'm not sure if I'm volunteering it yet or not, if we haven't. But that there could be guidelines in place, like they have to place the X's on the sidewalk, and here's whatever it is, the Lions are going to be on top of following the rules because they realize as much as everyone else that this is something that they are would be allowed to do. And then the Lions' mottos, is to care and give back to the community. So the last thing that they want to do is put anybody in the community also. There is another option too, if this were to open up and be able to happen. Community gazebo park is there. We could certainly put some well-spaced picnic tables with signs that say, do not move. People can go eat to go over there. You know, we have a couple extra garbage cans, possibly just an idea, or maybe that seems like too much. I just know that the Lions, if the protocols are set in place and they say this is what it has to be, they're going to do it because they know that this is the way of the world and that the city, again, would be allowing them to do this. So I guess those are my thoughts on that, unless anyone else has any questions.
You guys talked about the traffic flow and kind of how you'd envision that.
See, and I have not. Being that I'm with Steamboat Days, this event was not something that I did a lot of work with because I had, at the time, other work to do. So, unfortunately, I can't answer that.
See, I think Dean mentioned that there was another event similar to this in another community. Do we know how they did it? Like, what type of facility did they hold it at and manage the traffic? That would be good to know, too.
Go ahead, Brent.
To the city of Hamburg held one. I'm not sure what facility. They served 600 plates. I don't know the answer to this. Maybe Councilmember Mott can help out. You know, in a really a perfect setting, it would be nice, considering kind of the circumstances and the context that we're in, as if we could take some time if the Lions are willing to move that date back, and Chad and Deputy Sandberg and I and perhaps Vicky coordinate a plan to bring back to you. There are a lot of logistics. I don't know if there's anything special about that date, because if we bring a plan back to you by the 17th, where you could take a look and look at your comfort level, I don't think that gives them enough time to try to turn around the dinner and advertise and order product. And I could be overthinking this too. I know I like to plan and prepare the details. So, but I think there are some things if you were going to look at, you know, I think under a perfect setting, that's what you could do. I just don't know if that applies here. So I decided I'd bring it up.
Yeah, I think it was at the time the date was possibly, you know, looking at, you know, if we can't have Steamboat Days, this big, large event, if there's something else that the Lions could do. I mean, all the money that we raise goes back into our communities, and to, you know, a few other, you know, good causes around, like Can Do Canines and things like that. Like, we raise money to give it away, and most of it comes out here. So, I think that was just kind of the thinking behind it. I don't know that if it wasn't that weekend, I don't think that that's going to stop them from wanting to do it 2 weeks later. I think that because there is sort of that checkbox on the calendar that we all think of something happening in Carver that weekend, as long as it's not too cold out, you know, by the time, I just don't, if we're going to do it, let's not keep pushing, because people are going to stand outside, you know what I mean? So if it's something where it happens a couple weeks later in September or something like that, I think that would be they would be very open to that.
I was just suggesting that if we could, just because of the context, we'd bring the plan back to the council. Normally, you know, if they could use the facility, I'm assuming that the council would open the facility, but that may not be the case. But assuming that we would, I just think there's enough things going on where I want some feedback from the council. So I think pending your approval, we could get them going on the 17th and say, okay, this is a plan that we like.
I think it's a good idea to make sure the plan is in place so that everyone's comfortable on all sides, and then it's also able to let the community know what that plan is. I know that he doesn't have a huge turnaround with his food order. I don't know if that makes a difference for what we'll call Steamboat Days weekend. But I think it's worth having a conversation, at least on a staff level, to start with Dean, to say, here's the protocols, here's what we need to know by this, here's how we have to work it out, so that it isn't a little fly by the seat of our pants. So especially when it comes to traffic, right? We don't want to cause traffic jams in downtown Carver. So I agree that there might be a little bit more information just needed. Again, I don't know what Dean handed in to the mayor tonight. So.
And to be clear, it's there. It's not. So,
yeah, right.
So Brent, thank you for that feedback. That's good feedback about, making sure that we have a plan in place and one that's everybody's comfortable with. Christy, I know, I can see what you're thinking, and I know that your heart is in a really good place, but it makes me, the gazebo park example of just go over there and eat, especially if we're anticipating having 300 people, that just seems like something that would be really hard to maintain the social distance. So I, like, positive intent, and I get it, yeah. I also wonder, I just think, just back of my head idea, I wonder too if, they truly want this venue for the kitchen, and I get that and I understand that, and if it can be done with 10 people inside and no more than 25 and, obeying by all of the mask regulations and all that kind of good stuff. But I also wondered too if there isn't an option, and I know it would be a logistical challenge, but of, shuttling the meals up the hill to the community park parking lot or something like that. Something where it would be a little bit easier to get folks in and out of there. And just, I think we're in the earliest planning phases, so just lots of options right now, I think.
I'm gonna say having to then put food in a car and drive it up, again, there's only so many volunteers, I guess that's probably not a preferred brainstorm idea. Again, we're just kind of brainstorming
Yeah.
what we think is maybe the picnic tables aren't a great idea, but I am for the Lions as long as we get some kind of plan in place. I'm for having the to-go pork chop dinner.
All right, so I think we are, Brent, giving you the go-ahead. People shake your head furiously no if I'm interpreting this wrong, but we're giving you the go-ahead to continue to have a conversation with Dean and talk more logistics.
Then my plan would be to work on the logistics plan, but then I'd prepare an action for your meeting on the 17th that would, in essence, open up facility rentals based on the governor's stay safe order. So it'd be 10 people or less, they're wearing masks, et cetera, Is that, or is that
Sure.
in hand, or is this a special event?
I am fine with that.
I'm fine with that too.
I would want to know
I
if we
am
could
as well. Open it up.
Lori,
Does that mean
wait.
10 in the, does that mean only 10 in the whole building, or can you have 10 in the kitchen, 10 in the hall?
No, just 10 in the space. So the village hall room includes the kitchen and the space. So we don't have the ability to adjust that. We'd be open for rental for that.
That was 2 separate rooms, but now I remember the layout. It's very open, so, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now before we get to communications, I don't know that we need to have too much discussion on this because I would like to make, I think we should go ahead and appoint Samantha Peterson to the Historic Preservation Commission. So if I need to make a motion, consider that my motion.
I'll second.
Oh, wow. Real popular appointment. So I'll give that one to Lori because I heard her first. Mayor Johnson made the motion and Councilmember Sarah made the second.
Was that to the open position?
Yes.
Or as alternate? Open position?
Such a good question. I'm trying to get to the website here to see if I can figure out what we have.
We have one the second
Yes, there's
alternate.
one. There's
Second
one.
alternate and the fifth.
Aaron, could you help us out if you're on the line yet?
If she's not, there's one full opening and then there's a second alternate position that is open. So I would say if we could please fill the regular opening, the full-time opening, whatever you want to call it, that would be great.
Yeah, so there's, so I would love to appoint her to the full board member position, which that position expires according to cityofcarver.com on March 1st of 2023. So is that the second that you wanted to support, Lori, still?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? Questions? Mr. Mayor, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Henry,
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mott,
Aye, Christie Mock.
Councilmember Sayer,
Hi, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight,
I join McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right, motion passes. Samantha, if you're watching this live, kudos for hanging on for a long meeting and welcome to the HPC. All right, communications. Glenn, do you want to go first?
Sure. Planning commission was canceled last month, it's canceled this month. I do have a question regarding the young 10-year-old with the last name Kyle that was in this earlier this evening, and he was hit by a car. Was that the blocks?
No, I believe that was on, near the intersection of either Main and Jorgensen or Main and Ash.
It was Main and Jorgensen. So, it was coming down the trail and then ended up crossing and then hitting a car as he came down from the trail. So, I mean, it's a little bit of semantics. He hit the car as he was crossing the road. And
Okay.
it was Main and Jorgensen.
Okay. Was he in a wheelchair? I don't know. The problem I have
He was
with
on a
him-
bicycle.
Okay, he was on the bicycle, but when he came before the council, did he walk in? Was he on crutches? Was he messed up? Was he bruised, dent? How bad was he injured? We know.
I don't know that we can base our decision around this. This is making me a little uncomfortable.
Just asking a question.
If I looked at him in a line at Target, I would not necessarily have known that he was in a ambulance a week ago tonight.
Okay, that's okay. But that brings me to the question of anybody that goes to that microphone, we don't have the luxury of being able to see who they are or anything about them. And I'd like to have a camera of some type that we can actually see who's coming before the council not being there.
Yep, we can work on that.
That'd be awesome. I hope he's well. Sounded good, but somebody gets hit or hits a vehicle, that's a concern. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Can't think of anything else. Christy, I'm sorry that Steamboat Days is not happening. I was looking forward to it as always, but I get it.
Should that lead right into B
I was
Courtney?
going to say, with that, go ahead, take it away, Christy.
So most people now, just social media wise, have heard that Steamboat Days this year is canceled. Unfortunately, we tried hard. We had, we deliberated and we went back and forth and we tried, with the state mandates the way they are right now, and then putting that responsibility back on volunteers to try and manage seemed to be a little bit more than we could do. And then also in a few weeks, I guess we don't know what is coming down the pike. But with that, it is unfortunately canceled. We are looking forward to a great next year. We have a great group of volunteers. This was not easy for anybody. We were all saddened that we had to do this. So, but we're still looking good for next year. So we have the same bands are willing to come back. We had some very nice things where they were willing to just move the money over that we'd already deposited to next year. So we didn't really lose a whole lot on our contracts that we had with our folks. So unless anybody else has any questions, I think we all pretty much understand what's happening. And then other than that, I don't really have any other applications tonight.
All right. Lori?
No updates at this time.
All right. Joy?
Just to kind of go off of what Glenn was mentioning about the community comment from the young man who got into the bike accident. I was not sure I heard what his ask was. I think he was asking for some kind of stop signage or something on the trail to indicate the trail kind of ends here, or you need to stop before continuing into the road or something like that. I guess, Brent, are we taking a look at that?
Mayor and council, the staff, we certainly can. It would, I completely empathize with that young man and his family and all the loved ones. I have a 10-year-old daughter myself. That said, we have hundreds, maybe even 1,000 trails and sidewalks that have relationships with a street. And so I'd be a little bit timid about arbitrarily choosing certain intersections to put stop signs there, and on not others. I'm not the expert in liability. I defer to the city attorney. I just, from a practical standpoint, and those decisions don't always need to be made practically, but I just don't see that very often. I don't think it poses an abnormal risk where it's like it's not clear that it's there. I totally empathize with that young man and his parents. When I saw that call come across, I had a lump in my throat. But I don't know if the solution is a stop sign, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I totally empathize as well. I know exactly where he's talking about, and I think he did also mention about foliage on either side, kind of also blocking visuals at that intersection. So I don't know if there's anything we can do.
We certainly can do that.
Take a look at that, because we have ordinances around that, don't we?
Yeah, and that's actually, thank you for addressing that. Chad and I have had a couple of conversations related to, frankly, just tree limbs hanging over our trails, and there's certain sections where you kind of have to duck because limbs are hanging over. And Chad and I, or someone from this team, we can certainly look at some of those areas where trees are kind of basically blocking sight lines onto Main. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And something we should be doing. And I love that approach.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think he mentioned that the visibility was challenging, which I totally concur with, and that would be helpful. Okay. All right, that's it. I don't have any other updates.
All right. Yeah, and I think just as far as what that ask was, I think he mentioned a stop sign or some kind of warning sign of you're coming upon a big street. That said, I think I'm leaning definitely towards what I'm reading through the head nods, and maybe I'm reading into it. The consensus of the group is that I don't know that a stop sign for traffic is the best solution in here. I would love to see what we can do to increase the visibility in there, and try to go a little bit more that route. As far as my updates here, sorry, trying to get into my phone. So last Monday, I met with Lauren Slavato, who is the newest manager on the Lower Minnesota Watershed District. So Lauren is significant because for a long, long time, the person representing Carver County on that board was vacant. There wasn't anybody. So Lauren is a Chaska resident. This is the one that we kind of were putting out our feelers to see if we knew of anybody who lived in the district. It's really regimented. There are just certain areas of Carver, and the same with Chaska, where you have to be living in the district to be on that district board. So the good news is that we now have Carver County representation. If you all remember, I presented in front of that board back in February, back when you could go to face-to-face meetings and present in front of boards, to try to get those folks on board and hopefully support our levee improvement project. And hopefully, best case scenario, get some funding support from them for the local match portion of that. So I brought Lauren up to speed. I've got a couple of follow-up questions that I'm going to work with our consultants on to make sure that she has all of her questions answered. But had a really good meeting with her, and it was a great night, so we were able to kind of walk the path. Speaking of meetings, this morning Brent and I met with Lisa Sales Adams, who is the new superintendent for District 112, and it was kind of a get-to-know-you meeting, but it was great. Of course, kind of the nucleus of a lot of the conversation, a lot of the things that we talked about is what does school look like? What's going to happen in the fall? And she said that her intention is very much to stick with the state mandates. And the context of that is not necessarily to dial things back any more than she has to. There are a bunch of very large school districts in the state that have said that regardless of kind of where they're at, they're going to start in hybrid. So she is going to wait and see where the data is, and there's a little bit of confusion, I mean, on a lot of stuff right now, but as far as which set of data that they're following. So she's going to be getting some clarity on that. The other thing that she said is that the issues of equity of distance learning are specifically tough in certain populations, and I kind of asked her to expand upon that, and it was kind of probably who you thought it would be. Homeless populations, folks who are English as a second language, folks who have connectivity issues, so if there's an issue with Wi-Fi or wireless internet, and then also any one of their students or families who are receiving special services, so kind of more of the special education kind of students, if you will. So had a really good meeting with her, and it was just good to kind of connect with her on as much of a personal level as a Zoom meeting will allow, and just to get an introduction from her. And the only other thing is that I just wanted to acknowledge the cancellation of Steamboat Days. Christy and I talked on Friday, and Christy, I told you this, you know, privately, but personally, I understand what a tough decision that is. And while it's a tough decision, and while it's a gut punch that is just one more thing that was canceled this year, it's a decision that I support 100%. It was the right decision, and I know it was much agonized over, but you have my support, and I appreciate the work that you do on that committee. So that is it for me. Mr. Merrick, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do have a couple of things. This is a follow-up to the superintendent conversation. We did invite Lisa Sales Adams to an upcoming council meeting to give the council a similar opportunity to have a meet and greet and ask questions. And I think she'll be able to share with you how whatever model they choose for getting the kids back into the classroom. She'll be able to share that experience and any questions the council has. So Lisa will be at our September 21st city council meeting. We also wanted to welcome Aaron Smith back. And a formal congratulations.
Now a round of applause.
And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to kind of highlight Vicky Sun's item and Brenda Good and really that whole admin team. They're getting ready to work on the primary election, which is a week from Tuesday. And they've been really working under unique circumstances, as you can imagine, with the pandemic, all the rules and regulations that have to go along with holding an election and finding election judges. And so I just think it's worth noting that kind of extra effort and frankly the kind of the undertaking that they're getting ready to do under really unique and tough circumstances. So thank you to Vicky, Brenda, and that whole admin.
Glenn, I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, could we use some of that, the case money for the election? Is that eligible funds?
No.
The CARES?
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
One caveat, and we'll check the items that we're purchasing that are COVID related. You know, so for buying sneeze guards and masks, etc., yes, we can be reimbursed for that. I'd also add, and Vicki, if you're still on, I'm sure you do have the opportunity, and I just did this afternoon, to vote early or vote absentee at Carver County. Vicki or Brenda, were you able to kind of share that information with the council and anyone listening on opportunities folks can take prior to that next Tuesday to vote?
Yes, great.
I'm still here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I would share the opportunity that the in-person voting is still available at Carver County. I just did a posting again today on the website and social media. You can do the in-person Monday through Friday. In addition to this coming Saturday, the times are posted on the website, but it's basically 8 to 4:30, and then Saturday, I think it's like 10 to 3. Also, next Monday, it'll be 8 to 5 o'clock, and can still do the mail-in absentee application, although I would caution, we're getting to your ballot, they mail it to you, fill it out and mail it back. You're getting really close to the timeline. You could call them, there's a number on the website as well, and find out to see if there's enough time to do that. There's certainly enough time to do the in-person absentee voting if you want to go directly to Carver County. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that anybody would have about that.
I don't see any questions from anyone. All right. Anything else, Brent?
Nope, thank you.
Okay. And just kind of to second what Brent said, I did the in-person absentee voting weeks ago, and it couldn't have been slicker or quicker or safer. So if that's a concern, head to the county courthouse, county offices. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn.
Glenn, give me one tonight here. Stop it.
So I heard Glenn with the motion.
I must be delayed because I'm saying it on mine and then.
Sorry.
Glenn can certainly have it. I'll second that.
Okay, I was going to say. So Christy has the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Our Mr. Mayor can do the roll call vote. Sorry.
Councilmember Henry.
Aye, Glenn Henry.
Councilmember Mock.
Aye, Christy Mock.
Councilmember Sayer.
Aye, Lori Sayer.
Councilmember McKnight.
Hi, Joy McKnight.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, Courtney Johnson. All right. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.